I personally believe Quad is dying because when the foreign ministers met, there was no mention of the summit. Secretary of State Rubio used very nice words about India, and during his visit, President Trump also said he loves India, loves Modi, and all that. Words are good, but his actions are better. So one should not, there is not always logic in America's policy. And then in India's policy also there is lack of logic, because as you yourself mentioned, India asked America to give a waiver or extend the waiver. Now, India should not have done that. So Trump plays with words, and he believes that he can easily fool the world. Now, I would like to remind him what Abraham Lincoln once said. You can fool some people for some time. You can fool old people for some time. But you cannot fool old people for all time.
Will Pakistan be an impediment in resetting the ties between US and India?
Good question. But let's look at the big picture. You see, in Delhi there is an obsession with Pakistan. Pakistan doesn't have an Ambani or Adani or Tata. Correct? No big multinational. How come that India has failed to take note of President Trump's weakness? Let me put it this way, strong weakness for making money. And how come India has not been able to make use of it in a judicious manner?
Hello and welcome to World Report. I'm Jash Hirani. In this episode, we discuss the visit of US Secretary of State Marco Rubio to India for the Quad Foreign Ministers Summit 2026. Rubio's visit is being seen as an attempt by the United States to reset ties with India, which suffered significant strain after Donald Trump returned to the presidency. Trump's second term has proven to be one of the most turbulent phases in India-US relations. Tensions escalated after Trump repeatedly urged India to reduce its Russian oil imports to zero and imposed 50% tariffs on Indian goods. His repeated claims that he personally brokered the ceasefire between India and Pakistan following the Pahalgam attack also reportedly irritated the leadership in New Delhi. Along with several other issues, these developments are believed to have prompted Washington to send Rubio to India in an effort to repair and reset ties with New Delhi. But did Rubio's visit truly succeed in resetting India-US relations? To answer this question and to analyze the broader trajectory of ties between New Delhi and Washington, we are joined by a special guest, Mr. K.P. Fabian. Mr. Fabian is a distinguished former officer of the Indian Foreign Service who served as India's ambassador to Qatar and Italy. During his diplomatic career, he played key roles at a time when several major geopolitical developments were unfolding across the world. Let us welcome former Indian diplomat Mr. K.P. Fabian. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on our show, sir. On World
My
Report.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Sir, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio made a visit to India for the Quad Foreign Ministers Summit 2026 to reset ties with India. At least it was reported as if that he was sent to reset ties with India. Do you think the ties have been reset?
I do not think the ties have been fully reset, but at the same time, some incremental progress might have been made, because what we have to understand is that the ties are fully reset if only a proper trade deal is signed, and that is getting delayed. It is true that Secretary of State Rubio used very nice words about India, and during his visit, President Trump also said he loves India, loves Modi, and all that. Words are good, but actions are better.
Sir, you said words are good. Mr. Jaishankar, in the joint presser, he said that the Trump administration has been very forthright in putting forward its foreign policy outlook as America first. Now, where we are concerned, we have a view of India first. So there was a lot of jingoism on social media that Jayashankar is showing America its place. So, but on the other hand, we are also seeking US's permission to buy Russian oil. So, how do you see this dichotomy, sir?
Well, your question is very well put. All these slogans, America first, India first, Canada first. Now, these are slogans. A slogan is not exactly a policy. A slogan is there to attract popular attention and at times to mislead the popular, the people. So, if every country, after all, there are 193 member states, if every member state says, my country first, what will happen? Imagine Delhi traffic. If every driver says, me first, what will happen? So, we need the traffic police. In the same way, we need a traffic police for the international community. So, it cannot be me first, you know. So, that is a slogan, and while one may use the slogan for publicity purposes, one should not delude oneself into thinking that that slogan is tantamount to policy. Now, as regards Foreign Minister Jaishankar's statement, you know, see, Rubio wants us to buy more and more hydrocarbon, oil and LNG from the United States or from multinationals from the United States, even if they are working in Angola. It doesn't matter. The thing is this, if you look at geography, United States, if you're getting oil from there, the transportation cost will be a little more than when you get it from Iran or from Iraq. Secondly, when we buy oil from these other countries, it is basically determined on the market value. Of course, there will be some negotiation, but market value is, the starting point. Whereas in the case of America, there is no market value. In other words, it is politically determined. You know, so while I would say that it might be necessary for us to buy some oil from America for political reasons, one should not, I repeat, one should not overdo it.
Sir, you mentioned about oil and buying oil from America. There was also a statement by our Ministry of External Affairs, Mr. Jaishankar. He made a statement. I want to say our country, I want to say for our energy security, it's important we have multiple sources, large sources, dependable sources, and cheap sources. So, and the United States, because that was the first equation. It should fit the bill. So, if we consider that cheap sources is our priority, then Iran is also selling us some cheap oil. Russia is also selling us some cheap oil. So, if that is the priority, then shall we not buy oil from Russia or Iran and prioritize our energy security from there?
See, the point is that America says that India should not buy. If, in fact, you remember that America, Trump raised taxes on India, 25% extra for buying oil from Russia, correct? And at that time, India was not the only country buying energy from Russia. European Union was buying. And America itself was buying fertilizer and many other things. So Trump, you know, deliberately picked India. You know what I mean? So it was not India's buying oil from Russia that mattered. He just wanted to do something nasty to India so that India will be compelled to agree to terms in the trade deal. You know what I mean? So one should not, there is not always logic in America's policy. And then in India's policy also there is lack of logic because as you yourself mentioned, India asked America to give a waiver or extend the waiver. Now India should not have done that because let's look at it. These American sanctions do not make any sense. After all, what right have they to tell country X don't buy from country Y? You see? So this is not
But isn't that
America first.
compromising our sovereignty, sir?
Yeah, this is
Aren't
not
we
America first.
compromising?
This is America over alles. America above everyone else. You know, America dictating to others. Now that should stop.
Coming back to the resetting of ties, Rubio's visit to India, and there was another visit that Mr. Rubio and Mr. Donald Trump made, and that was in Beijing. Sir, and in the Beijing meeting with President Xi Jinping, it was more about Taiwan and less about Iran. And Americans were thinking that there would something about Iran. There was all mentions of Taiwan and how US should not sell its arms to Taiwan, and US indeed halted its huge arms sales to Taiwan. So, do you think that meeting with Xi Jinping prompted Washington to reset ties with India?
I doubt it. Let me put it this way. Um, President Trump's visit to Beijing did not, I repeat, did not result any immediate purchase orders from China except in the case of Boeing aircraft, 200 aircraft, which again, it is the American side that announced it. And you know that the Boeing chief was part of the delegation. And we also know that after that announcement was made, the Boeing stock price went down by 4%. Why? Because the market was expecting a much bigger order. And Trump, in his characteristic style, said, yes, but the final order can be much higher. And I believe he mentioned some figure of 750. You know what I mean? So Trump plays with words and he believes that he can easily fool the world. Now, I would like to remind him what Abraham Lincoln once said. You can fool some people for some time. You can fool old people for some time, but you cannot fool old people for all time.
Sir, there is also one more factor in resetting of ties between India and the US, and that is, sir, Pakistan and the overwhelming love for Field Marshal Asim Munir and Shehbaz Sharif by the US President Donald Trump. So, what role is Pakistan going to play? Will Pakistan be an impediment in resetting the ties between US and India, sir?
Good question. But let's look at the big picture. You see, in Delhi, there is an obsession with Pakistan. And Indian Defense Minister had said the other day, Pakistan can be divided into four and all that. You know, India's Defense Minister said. He also said that the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, should take over Pakistan's nuclear weapons. Now, this means that our defense minister has not had the time to read the charter of the IAEA. IAEA cannot accept any nuclear weapons from anyone. So there is a lot of loose talk in India. And loose talk often comes from loose thinking. Now, the belief that if our relations with America can improve only if America's relations with Pakistan deteriorate. Now, that is a proposition I should like to contest. Now, coming to President Trump's own policy, there again we have to understand. I'm not saying that he is right. I'm saying that we have to understand the why. You see, President Trump's family business has found a lot of partnership and enthusiasm in Pakistan. When his son visited Field Marshal Munir and Prime Minister Sharif received him with great enthusiasm and affection, apparently. So they have signed contracts, whether it is critical minerals, whether it is cryptocurrency, and maybe there are more. And then, in New York, there is a hotel called Hotel Roosevelt. It's an old hotel which Pakistan government had bought some time back. Now, this February, an announcement was made that Pakistan government and United States government will be partners in revamping that hotel. Can you imagine? And the man who arranged it is Steve Witkoff, President Trump's favorite problem solver. So President Trump's family business gains a lot from Pakistan. Now, my question to you is Pakistan doesn't have an Ambani or Adani or Tata, correct? No big multinational. How come that India has failed to take note of President Trump's weakness? Let me put it this way, strong weakness for making money. And how come India has not been able to make use of it in a judicious manner? Does it show lack of imagination on the part of India's policymakers? And does it show, what shall I say, an obsession with Pakistan where the policymakers cannot see the wood for the trees?
Sir, I have a follow-up question to this, sir. Do you think, sir, that India should view its relations with other nations with respect to what that nation has its relationship with Pakistan, sir? So, if that nation is good to Pakistan, should India be a little have some restrictions or have some reservations with that nation?
No, that sort of obsession with Pakistan is not good policy. Whether it's the case of Turkey or even Azerbaijan. See, recently, during the time of Sindoor, Azerbaijan made a statement showing diplomatic support to Pakistan. Then we stopped or reduced buying of oil from them. Now I think it is sort of, getting corrected. Now, this sort of petty-minded approach is not foreign policy. You see? And above all, obsession with Pakistan is not good foreign policy. India should talk to Pakistan. Again, slogan, what is it? Blood and water do not flow together. No, it's a slogan. It is not policy. Or terrorism and talk do not go together. No, these are all slogans. What is required is to talk to Pakistan, and I would say that we should reopen the back channel. And there is a constituency in Pakistan which wants better relations with India, especially the business constituency. And when I was there some years ago, as a part of a delegation from the Association of Indian Diplomats, so many of them were asking me how to get a visa to visit India. And we are not giving visa. This is absolutely doesn't make sense. Let the Pakistanis come and see the great progress that India has made and compare the progress India has made with the situation in Pakistan. You see?
But there is a field marshal that is sitting in Pakistan who becomes unpopular at times, and then he gives some statements regarding India which are not so welcoming for New Delhi, sir. And there is an opposition leader there who is sitting inside the jail. So to remain popular, don't you think Field Marshal will do some acts that will not be very good for New Delhi in the times to come, sir?
Yeah, let's look at the big picture and let us bring in some history. You know that in the case of the Kashmir dispute, There is a United Nations resolution which requires the holding of a referendum or plebiscite. Correct? Now, in 1953, Jawaharlal Nehru, as Prime Minister, talked to his Pakistani counterpart and agreed to conduct the plebiscite. And Nehru was looking for an administrator from a small neutral country. Then what happened? A man called John Foster Dulles, whom my generation used to refer to as Duller Dulles. He comes into the scene. He goes to Pakistan. He is impressed by the Pakistani military and he goes and reports to President Eisenhower. Now, that was the time Soviet Union had exploded its hydrogen bomb, looking at September 1953. Now, Eisenhower was looking at the cost of deploying American soldiers abroad. So it worked out to some $3,000 and odd dollars then per annum. Then he found out that a Pakistani soldier is much cheaper, 1/7. So Pakistan and America signed a mutual defense treaty in 1954, I believe. Then what happened? Nehru said, listen, if your idea is to get hold of Kashmir by using American arms, sorry, over, matter is over. Then the Kashmir Assembly passed a resolution, you know, joining India and all that sort of thing. Okay? And V.K. Krishnamenon asked America, because America said, oh, no, those weapons which Pakistan is getting, they can't be used against India. So he asked, have you invented a gun which fires only in one direction? So, then what happened? 54, the defense treaty. 58, the first military coup in Pakistan. And if you look at history, for the next 50 years, 32 years, Pakistan was under military rule. Why?
Without a
How?
constitution, yes.
Because the military always argued that there was threat from India. Only the military can save Pakistan. And what we have to understand about Pakistan is that even when there is a civilian government, it is the military that controls policy towards India, China, and the United States. So Pakistan's civilian government is not in full control. To cut it short, Pakistan is an occupied country, occupied by its own military.
Sir, coming back to the US India ties, sir, what do you think the future of Quad is? So, since Rubio was here regarding the Quad Foreign Minister Summit, is it the G2, America and China? Because Trump often mentions G2, G2. So, or is it the Quad? Because now India is also warming its relations with China. There was a news yesterday that India tells filmmakers to drop China bashing as ties warm, and also there was another meeting, which another news which says that China meeting on boundary delimitation, border management mechanism development, and cross border. So the ties between India and China are warming. The Kailash Mansarovar Yatra has begun. So is Quad now relevant, sir?
Now, your question has many parts to it. Let me start with Quad. I personally believe Quad is dying because when the foreign ministers met, there was no mention of the summit. Correct? That's point number one. And you correctly pointed out if President Trump wants a G2, then at the same time he cannot have Quad. Now, third point is that Quad is supposed to make sure that China doesn't prevent open and free maritime navigation and all that. Well, China has been aggressive towards the Philippines recently. China has been making artificial islands in contravention of the UN law of the seas. What has court done? Nothing. Now, let me share with you when Biden was president, senior editors in Delhi were briefed on Quad by the American embassy. The gist of it was that Quad is like ICRC, International Committee of the Red Cross. If there is a disaster, tsunami, shortage of medicine, when there is COVID or other things, Quad should take care of it. In other words, that is what the Americans wanted us to know. Now I tell you, none of the papers carried the story. You can, since you are from the media, you can figure out why. So that is about Quad. Okay. Now coming to India-China relations, after the Galwan incident, India was taking the position that unless the border is settled, or at least there is good progress in settling the border questions, India cannot have Chinese investment or good relations with China. And China took the line, listen, don't mix up the things, leave the border alone and we will see what together we can do. But meanwhile, don't wait for the border matters to be settled or to make great progress in settling them. Let trade and investment relations go together. Now, after a while, Delhi recognized that it was following again a wrong policy, that it was in India's interest to have trade and investment relations with China rather than, make these relations, hold them as hostage to the border matter. So that is what is happening now. I support that because put yourself in the shoes of China. Were I a Chinese diplomat, I would never agree to a proper full settlement of the border question. I would like to keep it there pending to make use of it from time to time to needle India. Because I'm talking as a Chinese, I consider India as a little sister. China is I'm the big sister. And the little sisters, younger sisters should respect their elder sister. So when the younger sister doesn't behave, well, I will do something to let her know that she is the younger sister.
Sir, you said a lot about border settlement, sir. There also has been some problem regarding border settlements with all of its India's neighbors. From the if you compare it with across governments since Jawaharlal Nehru to Narendra Modi, sir, India does not have a settled border with Pakistan. Neither India has a settled border with Nepal. There's a that Lipu Lake problem in Nepal also. With China, India has a border problem. With Bangladesh, we had a problem which we very recently solved with Sheikh Hasina government, sir. So why India has a border problem with all of its neighbors? I think except Bhutan, we have border problem with all nations, sir.
Your statement may be factually correct, but to deduce from that something is wrong with India, well, that may not be correct. Now let's start with Pakistan. You know the background to the Kashmir question. Well, and I also explained to you that India was prepared to arrange for a plebiscite. And it was Pakistan that did not, went to America or rather started getting American weapons. And then India decided not to go ahead, which is correct. Now, Shimla Agreement. You know that in 1971, India defeated Pakistan. And I believe, some 90,000 or more Pakistani POWs, prisoners of war. And we are captured a lot of territory in West Pakistan. Now, Indira Gandhi agreed to release the prisoners and to cede the territory. And during the conversation, she asked Bhutto about the line of control. And she said, let us make it international border a little later. So Bhutto said, yes, madam, but I cannot say it and put it in writing. Because if I put it in writing, when I go back, well, I will be overthrown and you will be dealing with a military government. In fact, talks had broken down at one stage. And then Bhutto said, how do I go back? You know. So he charmed Indira Gandhi into giving him those concessions. Now, regarding what she said about the international border, he said he would get it done, but he can't put it into writing. He wanted more time, but he had no intention of doing it. He was only fooling, you know. So India wanted to have a proper border with Pakistan, and if it is not there, the fault is not that of India. Okay. Now, coming to Nepal, it's a little more complicated. Um, what I would say is that India and Nepal should sit together and work it out. Because frankly, there is no big security threat there, you know. So it's a question of, sitting down without making public statements and, not doing things like, blockading Nepal in essential goods, including
Yeah,
petroleum
we
and raw
stopped the rice exports also recently.
yeah, or interfering with their constitution. Change that, change this. No, India should have a little more, what shall I say, a smarter policy towards Nepal, and it is possible that it will be all right. Now, regarding Bangladesh, no, we have a border agreement with Bangladesh. In fact, that was more or less settled when Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was there, and I was Deputy Secretary Bangladesh when that was done. No, probably 72, 73, 74, something like that. You see, only thing is that we have some river water deals. You know, there again, India has to show some accommodation. And I honestly believe that our approach to Indus Water Treaty is wrong. It is quite all right to ask for uh, its revision, but to say that we shall not give you any drop of water, well, that is not good policy and it's not correct.
Sir, my last question regarding the US India ties, sir. Sir, India chose to take a side during the Iran war. We chose to be at the side of the US and the Israelis, sir. At a time when the ties between the two nations, that is US and India, were at its lowest, Trump was continuously abusing us regarding the ceasefire. We had tariffs on us. So, do you think that we made a strategic mistake there by choosing US and Israel at that point?
I'll put it this way. We started with 100% alignment with Israel, you know, which was wrong. But we have been trying to correct it. But to my mind, there is scope for more correction. Until now, we have been correcting it very timidly, without, not seeing things with a clear eye. And, Prime Minister is going there 2 days before the war, and he's saying that Bharat is my motherland and Israel is my fatherland. No, that was, all wrong signals. Because after all, what is the relationship with Israel? It's a defense relationship, defense technology and all that. I agree it is important, but that doesn't mean it is the only relationship that matters. Let me give you one example. Way back, 1990, 2nd of August, when Saddam Hussein, President Saddam Hussein of Iraq, foolishly decided to have a picnic in Kuwait. What did India do? We came out with a statement saying that Kuwait's territorial integrity and sovereignty should be restored unconditionally and immediately, and all matters should be resolved on the basis through diplomatic negotiations on the basis of international law and the UN Charter. Now, mark, we did not use the word condemn. We didn't say we condemned Saddam Hussein's invasion. And I still remember that evening, 2nd of August, 1990, there was a reception at the American Embassy. And our media, they were daggers at me. Why didn't you use the word condemnation? What's your problem? So I had to explain to them, listen, we have 176,000 of our people there. We need to see whether this matter can be resolved diplomatically. Now, if we have to talk to Saddam Hussein, there's no point in publicly condemning him. That is not sound diplomacy. So in this case, when Iran's supreme leader was assassinated, India and also 165 plus girls, school girls, were killed by America. When India could have come out with a statement condoling the passing away of the Ayatollah and showing our deep regret seeing the girls killed and urging all sides to abide by the UN Charter and international law and to resolve matters through negotiation. We could have done that, and we didn't do that. That shows we lacked imagination. But we had that imagination in 1990.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your views on the Rubio visit to India. We will have you again for such subjects once again. And to all the viewers, do watch KP Fabian sir's show called The Diplomat. It airs on our channel. He shares his views regarding the events that are happening around the world, and those are very enlightening views. You will get a very clearer perspective of the show. And thank you so much, sir, for having
Thank you. I should like to see you in the Indian Foreign Service so that our diplomacy becomes better.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.